Hey guys, welcome back to another lesson. Today I'm going to talk to you about writing and harmonizing and playing scary sounding melodies like the one you heard in the demo in the beginning. The images, by the way, are courtesy of the Bing AI image generator. So this lesson is going to sort of start by focusing on some of the general let's call it theoretical ideas with some immediate applications at the beginning. And towards the end, I'm going to talk about some practical, more playing tips for the piano specifically. Okay, so our discussion is going to start by talking about the main tool we're going to use, which are minor chords. Now, if you've never built them or played them, don't worry too much. I'm going to quickly walk you through it. A minor chord is a selection of three notes that are spaced in a particular way relative to each other. Now, to build a minor chord, first of all, choose a note on the piano, any note. Let's say F. Count up 3 semitones. So these are 3 adjacent notes on the keyboard, including the black notes. So 1, 2, 3. And then count up 4 semitones. 1, 2, 3, 4. And what you have here is an F minor chord. Another example, let's take A. Count up 3, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have an A minor chord, or an A minor triad, as it's sometimes called. One last example, let's do a D flat, so count up 3, 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you have yourself a D flat minor. Now there are 12 notes on this scale, right, on the piano, C, D flat, D, E flat, and so forth, until you go back to C, and this means that you have 12 different minor triads. C minor, D flat minor, D minor, E flat minor, E minor, F minor, G flat minor, G minor, A flat minor, A minor, B flat minor, B minor, and back to C minor. Now, these minor chords give off this scary / eerie / sad sounding vibe. And they're the ones that form the basis for pretty much all of the scary sounding melodies you're going to write. So if I just string along minor chords almost randomly, you'll still get something that is quite sort of spooky sounding, right? Starting by just by playing these minor chords in kind of a random succession, we already get something that sounds kind of ominous, really. A famous example of this is the map room theme from the Raiders of the Lost Ark, written by John Williams. And this makes use almost exclusively of minor chords. So, it goes, they're making a few minor changes, no pun intended, and it kind of sounds like this. Now, minor chords can also give off a sad vibe, right? If I can play a quick melody for you, just to sort of make the point. So it kind of depends on how you choose them, what melody you play, how fast you play it, and so on. And there's kind of a fine line between sad and scary, really, if you play around with it for a bit. Now, when you try or set out to write a scary sounding melody, there are really two ways of approaching this. And the first way is to write a melody and then to harmonize it. And by harmonize, I mean select chords that don't clash with the melody notes. Now, to do this, I want to point out something very important. And this observation is that every note that you play in the melody in the right hand has 3 minor chords that fit it. And by fit, I mean contain the note as part of the chord. Let me show you what I mean. Let's pick this. Let's say we pick E. Now, E is part of the E minor chord. I mean, that's not very surprising, right? Because E minor is built on E. However, there are 2 other minor chords that contain this E note as well. One of them is D flat minor. You see it's here in the middle. And another is A minor. So E minor, D flat minor, and A minor. These are the really only 3 minor triads that contain E within them. And this is true for any note. Every note you play has 3 minor triads that don't clash with it. Let's pick another example. Let's take C. C is contained within C minor, A minor, and F minor. Now, it's a good exercise for you actually to sit down and find out all of the minor chords that fit every melody note. For your convenience, I've made a table that you can see up here on the screen that will guide you. That's basically, if you look at it, it will tell you which minor notes correspond to which melody note. Now, what this means is that when you have a particular melody that you've written, this tells you which minor chords you can use to harmonize the melody. Let me show you a couple of examples. Let's say that you have this melody. And you want to harmonize it. And this means selecting minor chords in the left hand that fit the melody. So one way of harmonizing this would be starting with a C minor chord to an F minor, E flat minor, and concluding with a D flat minor. So you can see that, first of all, I didn't change the chord every note, and this is fine. You don't want to change the chords too fast, because otherwise it kind of sounds rushed. I chose to harmonize the different notes when I did change a chord with the minor chord that corresponded to the note. So I have a C minor for C, an F minor for the F, an E flat minor for the E flat, but then for the A flat, I chose to play a D flat minor. And these are all valid choices, and I could have made other choices as well. For example, I could start with a C minor, and instead of playing an F minor here, I could have played the B flat minor. So C minor, B flat minor, E flat minor, D flat minor. Now, there are obviously many different choices that you could make, and there's no right way of doing this. This is really up to your taste, but this gives you a framework to work within to decide which minor chords you're going to choose for the different melody notes. You have 3 options for every note you play. Let's take another example. Let's take the melody I played at the beginning of this video. And I chose to harmonize this by playing an A minor to an A flat minor. I could have also played an A minor to an F minor. Or an A minor to a D flat minor. Now, all of these are valid. I personally just artistically chose to use an A flat minor for the second chord. Okay, now there's another way of writing scary melodies, and that is not writing the melody and then choosing the chords. It's actually doing the opposite. Choosing the succession, the progression of minor chords, and then writing the melody to match those chords. So as I've shown you in the beginning, if you just sort of randomly play minor chords, you'll get something that is scary sounding. And you can come up with such a progression and then play or add the notes to it. So for example, let's take this: C minor, E flat minor, D minor, B flat minor. And I can start thinking about writing a melody for this. And I'm going to start with notes that are part of the chord. Let's say I start with notes that are just part of the chord. So I'm playing for each chord one note, just a very simple beginning, and it, okay, sounds not bad. I can try other things. Not very impressive, but maybe. Now, I don't have to play one note per chord. I can play... I can maybe change the tempo. So it is another approach for writing these scary sounding melodies. Sometimes it will work, sometimes it won't. Sometimes the progression itself might be the melody. Maybe this is your melody. Kind of like the map room theme. Which does this. It kind of has like... You can almost think about John Williams playing around with the chords and then maybe adding the melody to them. Now there are some progressions that work better than others, and by this I mean that when you jump around chords, some distances make more sense or kind of tend to sound better than others. These are a semitone, two semitones, sometimes, sorry, a semitone, three semitones, four semitones, and five semitones. So for example, from here, from A to an A flat, so from A minor to an A flat minor, it's just moving down one semitone. So that's a chromatic motion. Let's say you want to move up three semitones from an A minor to an C minor. That tends to sound kind of good. Or you can move down a 5 semitones, so from an A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 semitones to an E minor. If you look at the initial progression I played, the selection of chords, which you can now see on the screen, I've highlighted the distances between the different chords in semitones for you to sort of study and take a look. And you can see that there is quite a few of them are chromatic motions of semitones. There are quite a few perfect fourths. These are the 5 semitones. Minor third, which are the 3 semitones, and so on. So you can just see it on the screen and kind of see what I mean by selecting the progression. In the last part of this video, I want to talk a little bit about arrangements. And arrangements is basically how you play the melody and the minor chords you've chosen. So let's say that you have this beginning melody from the melody I played at the beginning of the video. Now, many times it will depend on whether you play this melody down here and this sounds very sort of aggressive, and you could be writing an aggressive, scary melody. Or you could be going for something that is delicate. Which is kind of eerie sounding. So you have to think about where you play the melody on the piano. Many times you'll find that you might be better off using something, if you have a synthesizer or a computer, a sound that is more like a pad that sustains, like strings or something. Especially if you want something that is kind of eerie. Of course, depends on the sound and the settings and so on, but it's something to think about. Now, most of the times, especially if you're doing things that are kind of delicate, you'll want to arpeggiate the chords. So instead of just hitting the A minor chord, you want to play the notes in succession. So I'm here arpeggiating the A minor chord, and here the A flat minor chord. And so on and so on. Now, some of the arpeggios can become quite complex, and I'll give you just one idea. Starting from the root position, what you can do is you can take the middle note, so in this case it's an E flat, and move it up an octave. And in this way you're opening up the chord. So instead of playing a C minor arpeggio like this, you can play it like this. Or for an A minor, let's say instead of playing it like this, you can take the A minor chord, look at the center note, move it up an octave, and play it like this. Now there are more complex arpeggio patterns, and I have videos on this, and I'll probably make a few more down the line. But these will get you sort of started and get you sounding good very quickly, right? I personally think that this sounds pretty good. There is also, I'll draw your attention to this sort of break section that serves to break up the melody and the arrangement, and this kind of sounds like bells. And I'm just basically doing these arpeggios on the notes of the minor chord, just playing them in kind of like a succession. So these are some of the ideas that I hope will help you come up with your own scary sounding melodies. Use minor chords. Either start by writing like an almost random melody and then just harmonize it with minor chords, or start with a progression of minor chords and then add the melody to that. And of course, when playing it out, think about the register of the piano you want to play at. If you want to arpeggiate, if you want to sort of hit the notes and give it sort of a larger, darker, more aggressive sound. Think about the sound you use to play things, pads, pianos, bells maybe, strings, and that's it. I hope you've learned something interesting, and I'll see you next time.